In today's video, going from 30% body fat to 10% body fat using walking as your primary source for cardio. How long is that going to take you? Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and I've made a few videos over the last couple years talking about the process of losing a lot of body fat. Now, I myself have dieted down to shredded levels, and I've in the past, I've got up quite a bit heavier. I don't get heavier anymore. And I think a big part of that is I've kind of solved the problem, right? I've solved the problem with fat loss and rebounding. So I want to talk a little bit about that because fat loss is not really an issue. We all know how to lose fat, don't we? We just make some better decisions. Voila, the scale starts moving. But typically what happens is we put that body fat back on, and oftentimes we put that body fat back on and we look worse and we feel worse. So I want to talk about why that is, and I want to explain today's question, which is right here. I saw your video, how much walking until 10% body fat, and loved it. Well, thank you. I'm 86.6 kilos, 39 years old, and I want to get to 10% body fat. I like the treadmill, but often prefer walking outdoors. I have an Apple Watch to track steps. I wanted to understand how much should I walk daily and how many months it would take to reach 10% body fat goal. I guess my body fat is currently around 30%. So did some calculations on how much body fat and how much fat-free mass that you would have. Now, fat-free mass is everything that is not body fat, bone, muscle, everything. So let's assume that if you're at 30% body fat, you have 57 pounds of body fat total. And that means you have about 143 pounds of fat-free mass, okay? So what would 10% body fat look like for you? It'd probably be around 158 pounds. So we'll just say somewhere between 155 and 160. So we're looking at between 30 and 35 pounds of fat loss. Now, to lose that much body fat, it's also important that we're not losing fat-free mass. Now, why do I bring that up? Because if you lose fat-free mass, which would mostly be muscle, you're actually gonna have to lose more weight, and you're gonna have a more adapted metabolism, meaning you're gonna have to eat even less to get there, right? So you don't wanna be losing fat-free mass. And this is why I wanna talk to you about the actual process of losing body fat and why, for myself, walking has been a complete game changer. Because for years, I can show you my content back 16 years ago where I was dieting for bodybuilding shows and I was doing the work thinking it was ideal, meaning I was doing high intensity interval training. I'll even show you some videos here of me sprinting with a sled down my driveway. Now, the idea between high intensity interval training was that you would sprint all out for upwards of 15 to 20 seconds. And if you're going longer than that, it's not high intensity. Why? Because it's cardio to failure and you can't go longer than that, right? And beginners can really only go 5 to 10 seconds all out. If you have never done this where your lungs are burning, then you don't understand. But the idea there is that you get this burst from doing these all out intense cardio intervals, and then you recover for a few minutes, and then you go again. So the idea being that in a 15 or 30 minute cardio session where you might only do 5 or 10 intervals because it takes 3 to 5 minutes to recover to be able to go again, you get the benefit of doing like 2 hours of cardio because they call it the EPOC, or the exercise post-oxygen consumption, meaning you do the cardio now, the rest of the day, your body's burning all these calories. But what we found was while you do burn more calories in that 30-minute session than if I was to say, just go for a walk on my trusty treadmill over here, what happens the rest of the day becomes very interesting. They talk about EPOC as it's this afterburn, meaning you're burning calories throughout the rest of the day. But what actually happens is that you burn less calories throughout the rest of the day. Why? Because you're exhausted from doing sprints. And I can attest to this. I didn't realize it until I looked back. But when I was doing my high intensity days, I was exhausted. I was like planning my whole day around going out, sprinting, and then laying on the couch. Well, turns out if I just focus on moving more throughout the day, doing low intensity exercise, such as walking, well, I actually burn more fat for fuel, right? Your body uses fuel based on the intensity of the exercise. So when your body is breaking down body fat for fuel, you do not get exhausted. When your body is breaking down carbohydrates for fuel, think sprinting, well, you do get exhausted. Why? Because your body has to regenerate itself. Body fat being burned, I have found that it actually does not increase my hunger and I feel great afterwards, meaning I can do more bouts of cardio. I can do other things, right? I can perhaps even, go to the gym, be involved in other sports. And I myself, as a lifetime natural bodybuilder, my focus has been on adding muscle. And as great as high intensity cardio was for that period of my life and learning, I also remember my workouts suffered. I also got a strain in my hamstring one contest prep, and I got a strain in my back where I couldn't walk for a couple days. So, these injuries, I also found some correlation here. When I was doing a lot of high intensity cardio, my hunger would spike really high. I don't have that issue anymore. I'm able to maintain 10% body fat and below with very little effort through walking. So the question you asked me, sorry for the discussion on why walking, but I think people need to understand that I've gone through this evolution. I've tried all the diets. I've tried all the cardio modalities. I coach competitors at the highest level, guys. Okay, I have athletes at the Olympia. I've had multiple athletes win world championships in natural bodybuilding over multiple divisions. Okay, I do it all as a coach, and I'm trying to find the best approach. Even for myself, I competed in a bodybuilding show last year and I won my class. And the idea for me is not to find the easiest way to do things, but to find the best way, the most sustainable ways. And if it was better for one approach, but it was harder, I'd be all for it. I'm not here to do things the easy way. I'm here to do things the best way. And so let's talk about a few things. First of all, we discussed 30 to 35 pounds of fat loss. Trying to lose body fat quickly, the research is quite clear. You risk more fat-free mass loss. You also risk really rebounding pretty poorly. And so what ends up typically happening is someone says, you know what, for the next 60 days, 90 days, for the next 30 days, I'm going all in, I'm gonna lose 10, 15 pounds. And sure, you might have a lot of success, but what ends up happening is that because those approaches are not sustainable, you're not making changes to your lifestyle, you're not actually gonna be able to sustain that fat loss, all right? If you wanna look different, you have to kill the person you are now, and you have to be different. That means you probably gotta get up earlier, go to the gym, do some cardio, start preparing your own food, start being accountable through tracking through an app. And if you have no idea where to start, I have a free website called prophysiquemacros.com. You can just go in there and plug in some information. It'll give you your starting macros for fat loss, rapid fat loss, muscle building, whatever it is. But the idea is that you can't remain the same person you are now if you want to look different and be different. I often hear people say, Coach, I have this stubborn body fat. Body fat are just cells on our body. They are not stubborn. You are stubborn. I am stubborn. We as a whole are stubborn, and we are stubborn to our current way of life. We've gotten comfortable. You've got to get uncomfortable. But here's the cool thing about that. You can get uncomfortable for a period of time and then get comfortable again and maintain all the changes you've made. But here are the rules. First rule, try to lose about 1% of body weight per week, right? So if you're 190 pounds, let's just call it 200 to make the math simple. That is, let's say 2 pounds a week. Let's say about 1 kilo a week, which is around 2.2 pounds, right? That is about the maximum amount of weight you can lose and have it be pure body fat without losing fat-free mass. Because I said, if you're dieting for a few months, which it's going to take to get this off, if you're losing fat-free mass along the way, you are going to be compromising your metabolism and your ability to actually reach that 10% goal, because you're going to have less fat-free mass, which means you're going to have to lose less fat mass, which means you're going to potentially end up getting kind of skinny fat. So first rule of thumb, try to lose around 2 pounds a week at the beginning, 1.5 pounds at the middle, and towards the end, when you're getting near that 10% body fat mark, you're going to probably be dropping about 1 pound a week on the good weeks. And when you stall, that's when you make the adjustment. Now, you asked me about walking outside. While I love walking outside, I want to post a video right here. I want you guys to go watch this. I tested every type of walking, from walking outside to walking outside with a rucksack, walking on a treadmill, walking on an incline treadmill, walking on an incline treadmill with a rucksack. And I tested how many calories you burn per hour. Remembering that the way we lose body fat is by creating a caloric deficit, okay? This is the calories that we take in every day, right? And this is the calories that we burn every day, okay? Through our lifestyle, our activity, our non-exercise activity. You need to create a gap here. There needs to be a deficit. And what happens during that deficit is our body is breaking down fat for fuel, and it's not restoring it, not replacing it, okay? That process over the course of weeks and months, once you get in a groove with it, it's quite easy, but you gotta change the person you are now. So now you're focused on making sure you're losing about 2 pounds a week. To not lose fat-free mass, you've gotta continue to work on a resistance training program, okay? Whatever you were doing you need to keep doing it. Now, if you add resistance training and you start adding lean body mass, well, guess what? You might not have to lose 30 to 35 pounds. You might only have to lose 20 to 25 pounds. You might only have to lose 15 pounds. It depends how much lean body mass or fat-free mass you add during this phase. But the idea here is that over the course of, say, 16 to 20 weeks, that's the answer. If you clicked on this video and you're waiting for the answer, 16 to 20 weeks is how long it's going to take you to go from 190 pounds down to 155 to 160. That is the answer. As a coach, I would be having you check in with me weekly. I would be focusing on what's your total daily steps, your calories, your macros, your cardio, and I would be looking at pictures and measurements and just making sure that we are seeing progress week over week. And if not, we would be making some adjustments. Now, the longer you diet, the more important I find it is to include days of higher carbohydrates. Why? Carbohydrates are great for a few things. First of all, they're great for hormonal support. They're great for performance support if you are focused on lean body mass and doing some type of resistance training. They're also great for satiety. Glycogen fills our muscles. So when a muscle is flat, you will see it doesn't push out against the skin. When it is fuller, it will push out against the skin more. Carbohydrates store in our muscles with water, creating more volume. Think of it as inflating one of those balloons, right? You can inflate your balloon. So carbohydrates are great psychologically for athletes. I know when I'm dieting down, I tend to restrict carbohydrates because your fats and your proteins kind of stay stable. So those times where you've been on low carbohydrates for a while, and I typically say low carbohydrates is anything under 10 times your body weight. Again, I'm 215 pounds right now. So anytime my carbohydrates get below 200 grams a day, I start to notice after a couple days of that, I'm a little flat. I might need a high carb refeed day. If you don't need one, don't take it. But the idea here is that this is not a linear process. You're not constantly in a deficit. You need to take care of yourself. The reason I talk about 16 to 20 weeks to reach this goal, even though we only need to lose 1.5 to 2 pounds a week, is because we might want to include a diet break. Research has shown, and my personal experience has shown, that adding a week of recovery where you bring calories up to maintenance, bring cardio down significantly by as much as 50%, focus on a good week of recovery, that's going to set us up for long-term success when the diet is over. There was a study done called the Matador study. I've talked about it ad nauseum, but if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's an acronym. Matador has to do with the metabolism adapting over the course of a long diet. And actually, they used a 16-week approach. I use this with my competitors, and I find that the closer we get to 10%, and for our men that are getting below 10%, and our women that are getting near 10%, the more frequently I need to include these kind of recovery phases to protect them, okay? I have become a master at getting my athletes absolutely shredded, winning world titles, and then taking them to a place where they can maintain a physique that they want to maintain. They do not have to put body fat back on if they do not wish to. Just depends on their personal preferences. But this is the process, and this is how long it should take you. 16 to 20 weeks using an approach that is really about sustaining the fat loss once you get there, changing the lifestyle, changing the person that you are. And if you need some accountability, please, guys, I have a link below. Schedule a free consultation. Let's discuss what it's going to take to reach your goals. Check it out. If you guys have any other questions, please leave it in the comments below. Please send me questions on Instagram direct message, and let's get this thing going. I'm here for you.